Welcome back. This is Dave's Garage, and this project for my Versys X300 was to determine the best windshield design, windscreen design. And after much to do, this one turned into really a half a year project because of every iteration, to modify a design for the windshield. It took at least a couple of rides in different conditions to either validate or to determine what the pros and cons were of each decision or each design. So this really got big. This project is huge. Took a half a year, probably 100 hours, 100 man hours. I'm guessing. It's hard to tell. I've boiled it down to the thought that for those that don't want to sit through a long video and discussing a lot of the design facts, design flaws of these windshield designs, I'm going to make a small or short version. So if you're watching this one, you have to look at the time. If this thing is over 30 minutes long, or 40 minutes or 50 minutes, wherever it ends up, you're watching the long version. If it's, I'm hoping to hold it to about 10 to 15 minutes, somewhere down in that range. If you're looking at the time of this video and it's, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes, then you're watching the short version. I'll go ahead and publish both. I mean, I recommend watching a long one if you got time. It goes through just an enormous amount of iterations and what I discovered with each one. And if you're watching the short one, well, then you're just going to get kind of a more choppy version where I kind of skip over a lot of stuff and hopefully give you still enough meat and potatoes to learn something. So stay tuned. Let's get this one rolling. Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at something a little different than I have in the past on my Versys X300, and that is the windshield and extension, and also a bracket that I purchased and have been testing out now for, oh my gosh, probably 1,500 miles. I think I can do better, or at least we're going to try something, because vibration is still kind of like the biggest irritant for my phone charger and my GoPro mount, which I can show you what I'm talking about here. This is a stock windshield, and I have an extension on it, just this little 3-inch extension. I put this on here to try to reduce like air buffeting around my helmet. I have a lot of air buffeting issues with a standard height, even in a slightly raised up stock windshield. So this bracket that I'm talking about here was a store-bought on Amazon, cost about $45, and it has these slots, and there's like 2 rows, right? This is like a box of thin aluminum. The box comes up, hooks on with 4 new additional screws. So you've got the original 4 screws from the bike where the windshield used to be, then this raises it up on these slots 2 inches. So now you've got 4 new screws at the tops of the secondary slot here. So that just raises the windshield up about 2 inches. And between that and this, I guess it's about 4-inch extension, I've managed to get a lot of air buffeting in my helmet reduced, considerably reduced. But what the secondary goal with this bracket was to have this bar here that goes across and just comes up from that new attachment point on the windshield, comes up on a right angle, and then has this essentially a handlebar extension. So I have my GoPro mount here, and I've got a charging phone charger holder here, so I can have my phone here and have my map system up in front of me. And this is all well and good, but because this metal is thin and turned sideways, it actually is got a lot of movement, as you can tell here. It's just not firm. If they would have used aluminum here, changed the design to where there's more material, this would have been so much nicer. And I couldn't easily figure out a way to duplicate this at home. I just don't have all the metalworking equipment to do that. So we're going to try to do something completely different. However, it's going to have the same functions.
I went ahead and I'll show you here later in the video, but I went ahead and mimic this type of approach where I'm going to raise up the even taller than this one. I think I've got it kind of laid out to where I want to have about a 4-inch gain, and then instead of having this be really thin aluminum, I chose to go with like just a brute piece of aluminum billet that's a 1/2 inch thick and 5 inches wide and like 8 inches high. So what I'm going to do is have, again, a total of eight screws, 4 that goes in the bike, then 4 in the stock windshield, but the windshield will be higher than what I've got here now. It's going to be another 2 inches on top of the 2-inch rise. So that's the goal. And then behind it, at the very top of my new bracket, well, I'm hoping I can dress it up to make it look like it's not just a real clunky block of aluminum, but that's going to take some work, but we're going to try. I'm going to have another store-bought piece of handlebar extension on top of this new conceived bracket type of approach. So there's the goal. There's what we're after. To raise the windshield up a little higher than it is now. What I'd like to do is eliminate this extender, because you know this has a tendency to do this in the wind. It is what it is. I mean, it's floppy and it puts a lot of stress on the stock windshield. That's not a good idea, because eventually where there's flex, there's stress. Where there's stress, there's fatigue. And as we know, where there's fatigue, there's going to be breakage. Something here is going to give eventually if I have this thing continuing, you know, to just waver in the wind, especially at higher speeds. So that's the goal, to get rid of this, raise the windshield up, and then give that some test runs, some test mileage. And the idea is that I want to keep the bike looking kind of stock, just get this windshield up a little higher than it is now. I don't think there's going to be a problem. Maybe it might run into my my bark busters here, because there's not a lot of gap to begin with. But in the back of my mind, I can play around with some spacers and stuff here. I ended up buying just a whole kind of a pile of miscellaneous spacers and washers and screws. So I'll show you that here in a minute. So that's what we're up to. Wish me luck. I'm down here in the top secret high-tech lab, otherwise known as my basement. If you've been following me on my videos, you know that this is underground, highly secretive location, otherwise known as my junk corner. And it's gone through a facelift. This winter I've, you know, been off the bike and too cold outside to mess with the bike much, so kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Got my stuff all organized, lots of parts, lots of stuff, more stuff, still more stuff. Top secret project. You didn't see that one. This is what I've got going for the bracket on the bike. This is a piece of 1/2 inch 5x8 piece of aluminum billet. Nice sized chunk. I want something that's going to dampen vibration, and unfortunately weight is something that can help. I've got it laid out. These are just some pilot holes that I've got in here. This will be the 4 holes that go into the existing front cowl. These are going to be the larger 4 holes that go into the existing stock windshield. I bought a kind of a smattering here of lock nuts, nylon washers, spacers of a couple different flavors, and some bolts, more bolts. And I realized that as this design materializes, and I might have to do some things, probably have to go back to the well and buy some more. This is going to be the new bolt-on. It's all a cast piece of aluminum. This is going to be a piece that's going to go on the inside of the bracket, kind of like where I showed you on the existing one today, on that store-bought bracket with the handlebar extension. This is going to bolt on to the inside of my my main bracket, and it's going to be another handlebar extension. It's kind of fluted, but that's not going to really matter. I'm going to try it. It's a piece of cast, so there's nothing that can vibrate here. Hopefully it's heavy duty enough to hold a phone and GoPro. So we're going to go forward with the design, and we're going to push forward with the design 1.0, and I can already see that maybe some of my assumptions may not be on target. So stand by for additional addendums onto this video. So anyways, thanks for coming. See you a little bit later on with more of this development. Okay, after the large piece of billet aluminum was hacksawed and down to the shape that I wanted it, and I ended up with this. I've left these pieces. This is what I had to cut off using large drills and a hacksaws. This was really a chore, starting out with 1/2 inch thick billet aluminum. It was a 1/2 inch thick by 5 inches wide by 8 inches long. But I wanted to raise up the windshield by 4 inches. So first step was to get all this excess cut off. Then came a lot of filing by hand, filing the edges down to make it all purty and all the way around. This took hours. I mean, it is what it is. But it turned out well. I left it kind of a brush finish, and I think I'm just going to leave it this way. If I could paint it black, but frankly this thing looks like jewelry, and I'm just going to leave it the way it is for now. Consider this a prototype, but the thickness was the deal that that took the time to get all these edges all rounded down with hand files. I don't have metalworking equipment per se. I mean, I have a grinder, but it only would get you just so close with the finish, and then from there it took just a lot of filing and then sanding, and then buffing, and using a product here called semi-chrome polish. This is good stuff. I've been using this for decades, and it's a polishing for non-ferrous metals, of which aluminum is perfect. Because if I keep going with this, that semi-chrome will make this look absolutely mirror finish. I mean, it will be down to just a polished mirror. But I didn't want that. This is kind of a brushed finish, and this is where it's going to stay. So from here, it gets taken upstairs and fitted on the bike, on the X300. So from that standpoint on, then we'll get this thing finished up, and I still have some details to work out on the GoPro mount and the wireless charging phone mount that I had on my old gear as well. Continue on. Okay, the new bracket has been fitted onto the X300, and I think it looks nice the way it is, because there's been a lot of hours of polishing and cleaning and sanding on this raw piece of aluminum. So to me it kind of looks like jewelry, and the standoffs I put on assured me that there's not going to be any interference with my bark busters. So let's just take a look at what we've got here. This is the bracket, goes up underneath here, one piece. And if I had to do it again, I would not choose such a thick aluminum billet. This is 1/2 inch thick. That's 3/4 inch standoffs, and of course I've got my M8 bolts coming through. These are a little long because I'm going to put some nylock stainless steel lock washers on here, which I already have. I just don't have them on here yet. So that's going to fit that out, make it look a lot nicer with nice nylock stainless, bright stainless nuts. Just about that height too, so the threads are going to be hidden. 1/2 inch aluminum. I kind of went crazy with the mindless hours of to make these edges, which started out, of course, as you saw earlier, very rough, incredibly rough, with just hacksaw technology. That's all I have to work with. But I stayed with the M8 bolts up here. So these are M8, and the holes are drilled and then tapped for M8. So it's M8 all the way through. Down here on the X300, it comes with M6 bolts, these 4. And the purpose is multi-fold. I wanted to bring up the windshield 4 inches. So it's just a little under under 4-inch rise. And my point is I'm going to try to eliminate this this extension, this clip-on extension. I want that to go away, so I'm only working with the stock windshield, but it's going to be much higher, hopefully eliminating a lot of air buffeting. And there's been some testimony by other X300 people that if you use standoffs, use some standoffs and get this windshield out away from your cowl, that the amount of buffeting that happens back here at your helmet is reduced. So this is all experimental. Obviously, I'm not going to get this on the road today. Work in progress. But this bracket replaces this one that I had in there. This is the one I got off Amazon. And it allows, from these slots, it allows for the windshield to come up 2 inches. So I thought, well, let's just double that. I got to move my hardware over for my wireless phone charger and my my old-fashioned GoPro mount here. But hey, it works. So I'm going from something that would have been that tall to now something that's up here. So I'm adding another 2 inches. So there's a total of 4 inches. I think I'm a fan of the bright color. You know, it's just raw aluminum. It's been filed and sanded down to finer and finer sandpaper, and then this polish. It's like a semi-chrome, and by no means is it mirror, even though it's pretty close. I kind of left it where it's got this brush kind of finish to it, so it's not super reflective like a mirror, but it's getting there. I like it's got a bit of a texture to it. I think it looks pretty cool. And with the number of hours I've got tied up in this, I'm gonna leave it alone for this time and being. I thought, you know, like everything else, paint it black, but I thought, you know what, black is fine. It'd be like $15 for some semi or self-etching primer, and then some, you know, flat black, and I can have 30 bucks tied up in paint. Instead, I have 30 hours tied up in sanding and polishing. All this stuff here is, I got little baby standoffs behind here too on the bike. These are, I think, 5/8 height, M6 by 5/16. OD, ID is 6 mil. These are 3/4 inch. OD, M8 ID by 3/4 inch high, so it's 3/4 by 3/4 by ID of 8 mil. And then I went ahead, as I mentioned, drilled and tapped. So the only thing I did not tap are these holes down here. I didn't feel like it was necessary. Up here, this is where more of the stress is going to be. By the way, this thing is really rigid. I mean, this is going nowhere. So anyways, it's gone from concept to, I'd call this prototype. And I'm not done yet. I have to put my gear back on. I've got 2 pieces of equipment, GoPro mount and phone, wireless charger. So I came up with this little guy. This is actually for bicycles. It's cast aluminum, solid cast aluminum, 1 piece. And that's going to go like right there. And I'll have plenty of room up here in this region for my GoPro and my phone. I think this is going to work out really well. And this is rigid. This is a cast aluminum piece. It was Amazon, not much money. So I need to find a way to now drill and tap 2 more holes into my aluminum, and then remount everything. So this is kind of getting there, midway. Road test to follow at some point. But I'm going to take this all back apart to get this on. So work in progress. The X300, it's coming along. So from Dave's Garage, otherwise known as my high-tech lab, is signing off. See you in the next couple videos here. The last of the fitting now for the fairing, or the windshield and the bracket, and I've got my phone charger, little GoPro mount. Everything's back together again. So this is what it looks like, other than just my wiring I got to get done here, but this is what it looks like from inside the bike.
with the windshield now up a total of 4 inches. I hope that's kind of obvious that it is now jacked up, and I've got all the spacers in there, the nylock stainless nuts on the back of my M8 bolts. There's my aluminum spacers, my bracket that I made, and I apologize for having it be just crude sitting back here in the corner of the garage. Today's weather is fair, but I don't know, this is just a good environment in here to get this kind of work done. So there's my windshield on here again. It's all been reinstated, I guess. I left my little extender on for now, but the goal is to take that off and see if I can get the buffeting and wind noise down without that. It just would be nice if that wasn't up there. Plenty of ground clearance here for the bark busters and the windshield. Had I not raised or brought the windshield forward on these spacers, I don't know if I would have made the clearance here. It would have been pretty close. So here's my M8s, my M6s, the new bracket. I think it looks nice. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Consider this, prototype 1.0. We'll see how it goes. I've got my little holder on here now. It's on there sturdy. I mean, this thing it does not move. I mean, I'm shaking the whole bike with it now. The old bracket was just, folded up aluminum, and it's pretty thin, welded up aluminum and stuff. And the reason they spray paint this stuff black is just to hide all their crappy welds. But where this got into trouble, you can actually see it here. It started to fatigue right there in that thin spot. You can see where the finish and stuff is starting to crack. Over here is even a nice bright spot of paint missing. That's where it was going to eventually fail, because this is the bar that I had my GoPro and my phone on, and it just wobbled. It just wobbled in there because it's just thin metal, maybe 1/16 of an inch aluminum. But it was on its way to just failure. It would have ended up costing me some trouble at some point. But this is Amazon. If you didn't have all the stuff on the bar, to kind of put a moment arm on it, some weight, this would give you 2 inches. This is Amazon. I think it cost me like $45, and well, it's good while it lasted. But we're just going with something a little more stiff. So down the road there'll be maybe an addendum here for a road test. Other than that, signing off from Dave's Garage. See you in the next one. Well, we're progressing with our experimental windshields on our X300. I'm outside this time, new environment for my videoing, and where I think we left off was a shot in the garage. Again, this is days in between each segment, so if there's overlap or gap, I do apologize. But where I think we left off is I've had one of these little small accessory windshield extensions actually mounted to the base of the windshield. This is a stock windshield, and the goal here again is that when I raise the windshield up, I've now opened up some gaps, and that made things considerably worse around the helmet. So that's a bit counterproductive, kind of a bit disappointing, but hey, it just gives us another data point. So I had one mounted here, took it for a couple of test drives just now, and it's a windy day, so this is going to be kind of a test of the testing of the test environment, I guess. But I think maybe I gained a tad, but again, this is not enough to really do it. So as you can see, I've got 2 brackets. What's better than 1? Maybe 2. So we're going to go with 2, one on each side here that's completely adjustable. Be one here and one here. And again, these are fairly inexpensive, just fun to experiment with. So I think I'm up to like version maybe 3.0. I'm losing track. 4.0. Stay tuned. More to come. I'm going to jump on the bike with 2 of these on here, and I'll report later on. Thanks. Well, after 2 or 3 more iterations of moving a little auxiliary or extending the windshield, the little extenders. The final attempt, I guess, today to make something happen is I tried them down below, and then I've tried them, this is my last attempt here, just trying to make things look a little wider, and this actually had some promise. So it appears that just going taller isn't the entire secret. You have to kind of go wider too and kind of keep some of the air out a little more off to the sides, especially after you raise the windshield up like 4 inches, like I've done with my homemade insane time-consuming bracket here out of a piece of aluminum billet. Going a little bit wider and trying to backfill some of this gap that opened up, that's what created a lot of air coming right up and kind of banging my head around. So for a while there I was going backwards, but you never know, and you can't learn anything if you don't just try a few things out. And rather than rely on just laboratory or somebody else's word for it, I'm out here on the street making some attempts, running some tests on the road. The only issue today is it is incredibly windy. I mean, we're talking gusty, and the end results today has been altered or flawed by the intense wind. So I'm not done yet. We're going to keep going. Thanks, and stay tuned. Okay, just got back from a road trip. Some major improvements happened with this rather unusual concoction that I've come up with. First of all, the answer probably your first question is, when people see this temporary fabrication, they look at me like I'm the mad scientist. So now that that's out of the way, the buffeting around my helmet has been greatly reduced. The airflow and air, resistance and I don't know, just turbulence and stuff around my shoulders and arms are virtually gone with this design. It's just non-existent. Now around my helmet, if I kind of duck down just a little bit, it seems like I can make further gains, with the air noise that's kind of just maybe hitting me just in the forehead area, just in the very upper helmet region. But the air around my chin, neck, cheeks, and all, shoulders, it is really tamed down. And this is on a day where it's actually really windy out there. I go out in literally in cornfields, way out in the middle of nowhere, and some city, and transitional periods or distances, to just kind of catch a cross section. But yeah, the stability also. I mean, these are just plastic. These are just plastic PVC, and just held on with some screws down here at the bottom. And my crazy design to stay out of the way of the bark busters, it's working fine. Imagine that. So it just looks rather ridiculous, but that's okay. I'm learning something. So I'm thinking that I'm going to go out again. Maybe I'll put one of my extenders back on. This is what I wanted to eliminate, though. I don't want the extender on top. That's the whole idea behind raising the windshield up 4 inches. But in the old days, when I had that first bracket on, that raised me 2 inches. Then my extension was 4, so that's a total of 6 inches. Now with the extension off, and I've raised it 4, I'm actually 2 inches shorter than I was before I started all this. So maybe that's what it'll take or not. I don't know. I think the design, I try to pay really close attention to some of the discussion around how you make airplane wings, and everything's got to be kind of a curve, no flat, nothing sharp, nothing to create turbulence. And I think this design here kind of hit the mark. So it's more of a flow just around
the sides, both sides. Yeah, on this, again, my shoulders and arms and everything, hands. Well, the bark busters are responsible for the hands, but I mean, it is really dead air. Another crazy observation is because I think this thing has gotten a little bigger. Well, it's gotten bigger, but something that I've never felt before. Let's say that I'm tucking my head down just a little bit. It's a cool day outside. It's like 60 and 58, somewhere in there. But I could actually feel significant cold air coming up from behind, like up my neck, underneath the helmet, up my neck. So I'm thinking that this is, again, created a nice foil, airfoil, and I'm getting some kind of like some feedback. And another observation is, let's say I lean forward and whatever, it seemed like things got better. The further back I put my helmet, my head, like lean forward, lean back, the further back I went, it was definitely more turbulent the farther back I went. So there's a whole bunch of lessons learned for you. And I'm out of time today, but we're going to hit it again tomorrow. I'm going to put an extension on and report back. So yeah, we're up to about version 6.0. So from Dave's Garage, we continue. So today was another test run on the Versys X300. As I mentioned in prior videos, I went ahead and put my little extender back on. It measures right about at 4 inches. So with this 4 inches on top of raising up the windshield 4 inches, it's a total of 8. And good news, bad news. The good news, with this extension pretty much on the same plane as the windshield, the amount of buffeting on the helmet back here dramatically reduced. I'd put it in like the 80 to 85% range. And if I duck just a little bit, or lean forward, like as I mentioned in prior segments, if you lean forward, you really get into an air void here. There's just no air noise, zero air noise in the helmet, nothing. But in a typical seating position back here, you're going to get just a little bit, unless you kind of just duck down a little bit. But I tried with this this extension at different angles, so it's kind of in line with the windshield currently. I tried different angles, and the further you go down, you're essentially just making this useless. So you're back to the effectivity of just the windshield itself on this riser. So again, just to reiterate, the amount of buffeting around the helmet with a 4-inch bump up with the bracketry here, and no extension, there is definitely still some buffeting going on. So in conclusion, if you're still with me after all these segments, I do appreciate it. But I've learned a ton of stuff here, and I hope you have along with me. In conclusion, going wider definitely deadens the air around the arms and shoulders. Going lower to fill the opening that got created when the windshield went up by 4 inches. Putting this back down in here to close this back off again definitely lessened the buffeting. Without anything down here, raising just the windshield up 4 inches, not so good. I mean, it was more of a rattle than a buffeting. I mean, it was kind of just like somebody beating against your head with a small club. Not quite, but it was pretty bad. So just lifting it up is no good. You have to kind of backfill down here, as I tried with those little extenders, the dual extenders that I was moving around down here. Figured that out without backtracking and filling in this hole that got created by raising the windshield. Without filling these holes back up, you're in trouble. Without going up at least 6 inches, a lot of gains are not made. Going up 8, definitely cut way down, way down, 80-85%. And again, just adjusting where your head is, you can pretty much tweak it down to near 0.
leaning slightly forward, or just kind of maybe a little bit of a hunch to your back and neck. So anyway, that's pretty cool. A lot of experimentation and a lot of insanity here. So I don't know how many more segments I'm putting on this. I realized here in the last couple segments this is getting really long. We're at probably 35 minutes. I will edit things down, trying to get that time down, and we'll see what happens. So anyways, from Dave's garage, appreciate your time, and I'll probably just tack on one more, because obviously this isn't done yet. This is all just mocked up. I'll figure out what I want to try to keep, or maybe lessen this a little bit. With so much air being deflected now off the shoulders, arms, off your chest and your head, with all this stuff going on. Today was only, well, it's t-shirt weather, but I mean today it only got to about 72 degrees, and with so much air cut off, if you're not moving, it's like the equivalent of a higher temperature, because there's just no air movement around your helmet anymore, around your neck, around your arms, chest, hands. It all deflects. It's all been deflected by this monstrosity. So anyways, from Dave's Garage, maybe one more little segment after I get this all sorted out to a final design. See you then. Welcome back. The saga continues. I've got another iteration of windshield prototype on my bike, and there's good news and bad news. What I've done is I've created more coverage here out front on my adapter here, and I skinnied this down a bit because with the screaming green and black, I had it pretty large. That cut off a lot of wind. It really did. A lot of wind on my entire body, and with this back on, it kept the wind off my helmet, which kept the buffeting way down. So I left that on, but in going skinny and down here, what I gave up, the old green, the green and black design really hugged the bike. I mean, really came in here and just really hugged the bike. I mean, there was only a ½ inch of clearance, and that kept a lot of the air from coming in. So this design is flat. It left this wind tunnel on both sides, and this is the bad news. I mean, all this wind just comes shooting right in here, and it hits me right across the shoulders and across the face of the helmet. So the air noise in the helmet increased dramatically, which is not what I'm after. So I gotta go back to the drawing board again. A lot of this up here though was okay. This was still fine. Wind was going over my helmet. I mean, I used my hand out here to just kind of feel where the air's coming from, and it was like two wind tunnels just coming right in here and right in here. So with the face of the X300 forcing all this air up, and then this giving it a gap, it acted literally like a wind tunnel at both sides. I could just put my hand here, and it was just a blast of air, and that was only at like 50 miles an hour. So I didn't go any faster. I figure this is a fail. What can I say? So we're gonna keep trying. I don't know where we're gonna end up with all this stuff, but hey, if I wasn't learning anything, I'd just quit. So every iteration, I learned some more stuff. But this one here kind of goes back to where I had those little winglets down here. They kind of stopped the airflow when I raised this windshield up 4 inches, because that had a big gap, much bigger gap, and that was even more buffeting. That was just hitting me in the helmet and the face. It's like, it was not good. So anyways, from iteration number, I don't know, I'm losing track, 6, 8, pick one, I don't know. We're gonna keep trying. This was interesting. I think I've dialed in most of what I want in the way of coverage up here, but down here I'd give it a fail. Unless you want a lot of air hitting you right across the shoulders and in your face, like on a really hot day where you want just that air that just
comes in and just canvases you right across here, this is your design for that. But any other day, I'd say, nah, we're gonna keep trying. Thanks, and see you on the next iteration. Welcome back. What I've done now is I've modified what I've created with the new V-shaped windshield. And what I mean by that is this here is covering about what I want to get covered. Obviously this is scaled down compared to the yellow and black, some scrap plastic that I had. This is actually a piece of polycarbonate here that I've kind of used for this experiment. But I went ahead and you know, a while back in the earlier segments I used these little extensions, like kind of like this one, just a different manufacturer, and I had them down here before with the original windshield, and I put them back on here just to see if I trimmed way back the amount of air coming up from this what I call the wind tunnel. It was just a lot of air hitting me right across the shoulders and in the helmet, and this did the job. I mean, it really cut down. Obviously I've still got some portholes here and whatever. A side effect, it created a nice whistle that I really don't want, so this would have to be, you know, dealt with if I want to just stay with this whole mess, but that's not going to happen. So these here did a great job on both sides, taking a lot of the air that came right up through these portholes here and made the air kind of go out to the side. So that was a good improvement. In fact, I'd say the overall effect of what I've got sitting here now is about where I want to be. You know, just to kind of summarize here, you have to, in order to get your entire helmet completely out of the airstream, you have to come up with a, you know, like a 4-inch extension on top of your windshield, and also I've raised my windshield up 4 inches. So you need about 8 inches over stock to get your helmet completely out of the airstream. You have to go wider to get the air, some of the air at least, you know, 2/3 of the air off your chest and shoulders and arms or whatever here. The yellow and black scheme really cut off a lot of air. This is a good compromise, and this height here I think allowed some air in. I could feel air on my shoulders, which is fine, just not in my face from having this reflector here, or extension. So I think what I've realized here is that depending on where you put your windshield, how wide, how tall, how much you keep it enclosed, especially right down here near the fairing, near the plastic, is how much air that's going to come up along this stock fairing and everything, and hit you in the shoulders and in the face. So this here has got to be dealt with. If you're going to raise the stock windshield up, then you've got to deal with some closure down here if you want a lot of air to, you know, cut off so it doesn't hit you. But the overall experimentation with the height here, I'm 5'10" ish, and in order to get that air off your helmet, you've got to have 8 inches of rise over the stock setup. And in order to get a lot of the wind off your shoulders and arms, or let's say 2/3 of the wind off your shoulders and arms, you got to come out here another, I don't know, not that far, maybe, you know, 3 inches, 2 inches kind of thing. The stock windshield ends right here, and then this here just kind of gives you a little more protection. And if you want to cut off almost all air, then you got to go with more or less the scheme I have with the yellow and black. So the yellow and black one, go back and look at the segments, but they came out further by another couple inches and came pretty much up to the top of the windshield. So if you wanted to really cut the air down, you need a couple more inches pretty much everywhere. And the yellow and black was real tight to the fairing because I had them on a hinge, and that really closed off a lot of this air down here. It wasn't allowed to come in. That's why I had almost no air. It was a real dead air space. you know, up in this area here where your shoulders and head are. So a lot is learned. I'm not sure where I'm going to end up with this. Obviously I want something that kind of mimics what I've got here, but doesn't look so patched up. So it is what it is. Experimentation. Kind of like the mad scientist on steroids again here, but hey, it's been fun. Learned a lot. There may be one last segment, not sure. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, and see you on the next one. Okay, we're gonna go for the home run here, I guess, the final episodes. I'm gonna go with the design I had with the yellow and black scrap plastic, larger, like a double wing type of approach. And for the time being, I think I'm going to keep my little extender on top. So here we are in step one. We're back to just stripping everything off. I've got my aluminum bracket here, which is going to raise up the windshield 4 inches. So I've got that back on the bike, got it cleaned up. Here is step 2 with the windshield now on the riser, and I've got my little adapter polycarbonate with the white all stripped off, and I'm still working with this little extender. Step 3, I've got my 2 wings back on. I've got all the white protective films off, so I've got my my left and my right wings on, and they're a little staticky. Piece of grass on there, but they mimic the bright yellowish green and black plastic pieces I had on here before. They're on hinges that are they're self-closing hinges that hold, you know, these wings here in place. It came out real nice. You know, the edges and everything I spent a little time on, you know, to get that nice and clean and get it kind of polished up. So they actually have kind of a blue tint to them, but there's no blue in it. So I've got the original windshield. I've got my thick aluminum bracket that I made that is beneath there. Then I've got my, like, what I call my adapter. This is another piece of polycarbonate, 1/4 inch thick. It kind of mimics the silver bracket, but yet it's a little different to accommodate the 2 hinges here, which then just come out to the wings. And then my extension. I'll get a better picture of this. I'll get when the next time I have the bike out of the garage, you know, out in the daylight, we'll take a look at this. But this is a really large form factor, and again, when it comes in contact with the bark busters, the concept here is that these will just move out of the way. Might need some fine tuning on that, but all right. So this will be like my cooler weather winter type of arrangement. And you've already seen my design that just takes the place of the 2 wings. I don't have the protective film off this yet, but this is another piece of Lexan or polycarbonate, not Lexan. It's polycarbonate, and or not plexiglass. Excuse me, plexiglass. Plexiglass isn't as strong; it's more fragile, and you can't work it. This stuff here works like wood. You can. I used a saber saw to cut it out. Used files and sandpaper and all the same stuff you'd use for wood. So this here anyways is for my summer. It allows more air under here, like I mentioned. It hits you right in the shoulders, across the chest, which for really hot weather like actually we're having right now would be the best design to put back on the bike. But just 6 screws, I can go back and forth depending on you know, super hot or warm weather or not warm weather. I'm going to try this out again. This is the one I've got the most interest in this style. We are supposed to have some cooler weather here by tomorrow, I think. So we're going to get this bike out, get this all, you know, tested again. Just whatever I need to do, get it done. And again, this is, I shouldn't say done. This will never be done with everything that I've learned so far, and maybe some other things I can think of to try. to get a more uniform design, or just, who knows, down the road I might just go with a store-bought version. We'll have to see. So from Dave's garage, that's a little hot and sweaty today. We'll see you at the very final. Welcome to the last installment. This is the phase, or the design that I'm going to stick with here for this summer. And when it's out here in the sun, you get a better idea as to what's going on. These are the polycarbonate little wings I put on here, one on each side. Original windshields here, and again my little clear, what I'm calling adapter, that's in front of my my really super heavy duty aluminum bracket that I made out of 1/2-inch aluminum billet. And I'm sticking with the little expander here, or extension, for the time being, as if I just leave it at this height, then I end up with still quite a bit of wind noise around the helmet. So I've raised it up 4 inches here, and another 4 inches kind of covered here. So if you want to keep like 90% of all the air off you everywhere, you got to kind of stay low with your design to cover up these gaps once you raise the windshield up. And earlier stages I didn't have anything down here, and the wind coming in was just ridiculous. Kind of a bouncing, buffeting it around. It was probably one of the worst designs I came up with, just raising the windshield up 4 inches. Raising it up 2 inches, not so big a deal. It helped a little bit with the helmet and buffeting. Raising it up 4 inches, you create a real wind tunnel under here, as was some of the other earlier designs that intermediate designs. So with all that, I'm going to sign off here from Dave's garage, and I'm thinking about, or I have thought about, making 2 versions of this, a short version and then a long version. So if you're sticking around for the long version, appreciate it. If you're sticking around for the short version and you want to see how I got here, this is kind of like where I'm leaving it for the moment, or for the year. If you want to see how I got here and all the intermediate steps and the fails and the successes, then watch the long version. And if you did watch the long version, thanks. And from Dave's Garage, signing off. See you on the next one. This project was huge in the way of hours and labor and materials and different phases. So anyways, on to the next subject. Whatever that might be, I don't know, but stick around. More X11, or X11, more X300. Fun to come. Bye-bye.